found out my wife was sleeping with men from Tinder. 2 years. Dozens of first dates while I paid the bills. She said it was just attention, that I got comfortable and she got curious. So I printed every chat, every nude, every hotel receipt, and sent them to her boss, her parents, and her pastor. She lost her job, her family, her reputation. I didn't suspect a thing. Not until the box arrived. It was a Tuesday morning. Cold. Gray. One of those weeks where everything feels routine. I'd just come back from a business trip, 3 nights in Detroit, working late, barely sleeping, trying to close a cybersecurity contract for a logistics firm that couldn't figure out how their internal servers kept getting breached. I walked up to the porch and saw a padded envelope leaning against the door. Grace usually handled the online shopping, so I didn't pay much attention. Until I picked it up and saw the name. It wasn't addressed to Grace. Or me. It was addressed to Sweet G, at our home address. At first I thought it was a nickname. Maybe a gift from a friend. But I turned it over and froze. The return label had a full name. Lucas A. No company. Just a man's name. Curious, I opened it. Inside was a small, glossy black box. Expensive packaging, the kind high-end boutiques use. I opened it. Lingerie. Red lace. Very sheer. But not new. I wish I could say it was just my imagination. But I could smell it. There was a handwritten card, too. Folded neatly. Last weekend was unforgettable. I still see those marks you left. Can't wait for next time. L. My brain short-circuited. I kept rereading it like maybe it meant something else. It didn't. Grace was in the shower. I stood in the living room staring at the box, trying to think rationally, trying not to let the worst version of this spin out in my head. But there was nothing innocent about what I held. I went to the kitchen, opened a drawer where we kept our random tech junk, and pulled out the backup phone I used for travel. It wasn't synced to anything. I connected it to our Wi-Fi and waited. Then I walked upstairs, casually, and peeked into the bathroom. She was still in the shower. Her phone was on the counter. Unlocked. I grabbed it. My hands didn't shake. I was too focused for adrenaline. I opened her home screen. A calculator app with a weird icon placement caught my attention. It had permissions turned on for location, notifications, and contacts. Not normal for a calculator. It was a disguise. A locked vault app. I guessed the PIN in 3 tries. Our wedding anniversary. Easy. The vault opened. Inside were hundreds of screenshots. Messages. Photos. Some of her. Many from men. Explicit. Vulgar. Time-stamped. Tagged. Dozens of conversations across different platforms. But the same tone. Flirty. Coy. Transactional. And then I saw it. A Tinder app folder. Buried. Hidden in a launcher only visible in developer mode. I opened it. She'd made a fake Apple ID just for the app. Used a second number from a burner app. I dug deeper. Her bio was short. Married, but curious. New to this. First drinks are on me. Photos from years ago. Photos she never sent me. Photos I didn't know existed. And the messages were endless. Conversations with over 40 different men. Some had ended after a few flirty exchanges. Others had progressed into hotel bookings, dinner reservations, nudes, even video calls. She had a system. Some she met once. Some twice. Some she kept around for fun. They didn't know each other. But I recognized one name immediately. Lucas. From the box. I also recognized another name. Someone I worked with. Jason. We'd been up for the same position last year. He got it. I congratulated him. Bought him a drink. Apparently, he was thanking me in his own way. There were messages from him. You really gonna tell him yet? He wrote. I'm starting to feel like the side guy. Grace replied with a selfie. In a comment. Carl doesn't notice anything unless I put it in a report. I sat there for 5 minutes reading their exchange. Then I looked at the timestamps. They'd been seeing each other for over a year. While I was pulling 14-hour shifts. Paying off her grad school loans. Funding the down payment on her dream gallery space. And all this time she was playing me. Not once. Not twice. But methodically. With men from an app known for hookups. Many of them younger. Fitter. Some married. Some just bored. But what disturbed me more than the cheating was the detachment. Her replies weren't emotional. They were robotic. Strategic. She talked to these guys like she was clocking into a second job. Like it was normal. Like I didn't exist. I put the phone back where I found it. She came downstairs later wearing her usual smile. Asked if I wanted coffee. Kissed me on the cheek. I said sure. And smiled back. Because I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't even going to ask why. No. I was going to document everything. Every message. Every receipt. Every hotel name. Every chat log. Every nude she sent. Every alias. Every time she used our money to fund these fantasies. She thought I'd leave. She didn't realize I wasn't planning to walk away. I was planning to set the house on fire. Carl wasn't new to data recovery. He wasn't new to deception either. Years in cybersecurity had made him familiar with every kind of digital footprint people try to hide. Grace, unfortunately for her, was sloppy in all the wrong places. While she kissed him goodbye for her charity board meeting, he opened her MacBook using her fingerprint, which she had once jokingly registered on his phone when they were play fighting. It worked on her laptop, too. He mirrored her hard drive, pulled her cloud backups, recovered deleted chats, synced every device she owned to a digital hub he set up on a private NAS in his office. Everything routed through a separate network she couldn't see. Then he waited. For 10 days, he let her live her life. She told stories about donor meetings, volunteer dinners, and networking mixers. Meanwhile, Carl watched hotel confirmations hit her inbox. He watched new chats load on Tinder, each starting with the same script. Each one led to a new man. He began mapping it out. Literally, each hotel, restaurant, apartment, and coffee shop went on a custom map. He ran timestamps, looked for patterns. That's when the real horror started. Because some of the faces weren't new. They were familiar. One was the youth pastor at the local church Grace still attended for appearance. Another was a board member at the nonprofit she volunteered at. Another was the husband of one of her closest friends, a woman who had helped Grace plan their wedding years ago. Carl started compiling a report. Not for himself. For future use. A full dossier. Names, faces, dates, locations. One file per person. Color-coded. Watermarked. Irrefutable. Some men knew she was married. Others didn't. Some sent gifts. Others sent threats when she ghosted them. One had even offered her a job. And based on a few emails Carl recovered, she was considering it in another city. Without telling him. But it got worse. Through her Telegram backups, Carl found archived group chats, private, invite-only message boards where she and a few women shared photos, bragged about flings, and ranked their first date scores. Grace was active in every one. She joked about her husband being too focused on coding to notice anything. She used phrases like trophy wife license and married women get free drinks faster. She even called her marriage part of the aesthetic, something men found hot, when she confessed it halfway through the second drink. The calm Carl had maintained began to warp into something colder. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He kept building. He cross-referenced her financial records, tracked which hotel stays were paid from their joint accounts. She had withdrawn cash from ATMs to cover things she didn't want tied to their cards. But he traced the machines using GPS metadata and surveillance timestamps from bank APIs he had access to. Each transaction built the case. She wasn't just cheating. She was doing it strategically, consistently, and without remorse. One night, she came home late again. Her makeup was heavier than usual, hair freshly styled. She said she was helping organize a late-night donor auction. She kissed Carl on the forehead, showered, and went straight to bed. He looked at her phone that night. There was a new photo in the hidden folder. It wasn't even taken in a hotel. It was a bedroom, someone's home. A man's arm in the corner of the frame. A wine bottle on the nightstand. A caption under the picture. He doesn't even ask where I go anymore. Carl recognized the room. It was his co-worker Jason's apartment. They'd worked late there once, prepping for a product demo. Jason had offered him wine from that exact bottle. Carl remembered the wallpaper. The dumb, inspirational quote above the bed. It wasn't just betrayal now. It was proximity. Grace wasn't going after strangers. She was hunting within their circle. A week later, she brought up an idea. She wanted them to refinance the house, said it would give her a little startup fund, let her finally open the art space she always dreamed of. Carl nodded, said he'd look into it. She smiled and kissed his neck. He approved the refinancing. Had her sign paperwork. She didn't read it closely. He took the money. All of it. Moved it into a separate trust under his name, protected by legal firewalls she couldn't touch. If she tried to fight it later, she'd find the documents had her consent, her initials, her signature, notarized in person. While she was building a double life, Carl had been building a trap. And then came the gala, a charity fundraiser for her nonprofit, a black tie event hosted at a private hall downtown. Grace was on the planning committee. She spent weeks preparing for it, choosing a dress, practicing her speech. She looked radiant that night. And so did 3 of the men in the room. Carl recognized them instantly from the dossier. Lucas, the man who sent the box. Jason, the coworker. And a third, older, wealthier, someone Carl had only seen in digital records, but instantly identified by the scar under his eye and the gold cufflinks. Grace walked around the room like a queen, kissing cheeks, laughing softly, charming donors. She didn't know Carl was watching everything. That every chat she'd sent had already been duplicated, backed up, timestamped, archived. That every lie she told was about to be recycled into something with a far sharper edge. She had built her fantasy life on stolen time. Now Carl was going to return the favor. Carl woke up at 5 a.m. on the Tuesday after the gala. Grace was still asleep, curled in silk sheets she had picked out 6 months ago after a wellness retreat that, according to her receipts, was actually a weekend at a wine villa with someone named Marco. Carl didn't look at her. He sat at his desk and opened the encrypted archive he had titled The Museum. Inside were folders, each named, dated, indexed. Each contained screenshots of every conversation, a full list of hotel bookings with GPS coordinates, itemized receipts with financial breakdowns from their shared account, her Tinder profile, complete with metadata proving recent updates, photos she had sent and ones she received, a compiled list of men with full names, social media handles, and facial ID tags. He had everything. He didn't rage. He didn't monologue. He formatted the information into 6 personalized packets. Her company's HR department, labeled Conduct Unbecoming, Reputational Risk. Her church pastor, marked Leadership and Moral Representation. Her parents, bundled as Your Daughter's Marriage and Financial Conduct. The board of trustees of the nonprofit, with a special emphasis on financial impropriety and romantic entanglements with donors. Her best friend, Anna, who had no idea Grace was sleeping with her husband. Jason, his co-worker, with a note that read, "Thought you should know I found your promotion quite impressive." Each envelope contained printed screenshots and a QR code linking to the full backup archive hosted on a temporary, auto-deleting server. Carl dressed in a tailored jacket, put on gloves, and drove to each location. No stamps, no digital trail, just hand-delivered packages, slid under office doors, inserted into mail slots, or dropped in private mailboxes. A ghost with a purpose. He returned home by 9:30 a.m. Grace was still asleep. By noon, the first message came in. It wasn't to him. It was to Grace. From her boss. "Call me. Now." Then another. From her pastor. "Need to meet. Urgent." Then from her mother. "What is this? Tell me it's fake." Grace stared at her phone like it was melting. She tried to call back, but no one picked up. Then her best friend texted, "Don't ever come near me again. You're disgusting." Carl sat on the couch with his laptop, headphones in, pretending to be on a conference call. She asked if something was wrong. He shrugged. "Must be a bug. You look pale, though." Grace barely ate that day. Her phone didn't stop buzzing. At 4 p.m., she got a call from her company's compliance officer. She locked herself in the bathroom to take it. 20 minutes later, she emerged white-faced, saying she had to swing by the office. She left without makeup, without a handbag. She looked like she'd been caught stealing from a funeral. Carl watched from the upstairs window as she drove off. He picked up the landline and made one more call, to a lawyer. He didn't want revenge anymore. He wanted closure. At 6:30 p.m., Grace returned. Her car wasn't parked straight. She slammed the front door, didn't even look at him, and went straight to the bedroom. He didn't follow. 10 minutes later, she came back down. She was crying. Quietly. She asked him if he knew. He asked her what she was talking about. Her voice cracked. "The documents. Everything. My work, my parents, my church." She looked like she'd aged 10 years in a day. Carl didn't move. She fell to her knees. Said she messed up. Said she had been curious. Said he'd gotten comfortable. That she never planned for it to go this far. He nodded, then asked her if she wanted tea. She looked up in shock. He was already in the kitchen. She followed him. Asked if he was going to leave. He said he already had. She just hadn't noticed. That night, she barely slept. Kept going back and forth between rage and begging. Carl slept on the couch, not because he had to, because he wanted her to watch him choose distance. The next morning, things got worse. By 9 a.m., Grace's access card at work was deactivated. She got an email from HR titled, "Termination of Employment, Code of Conduct Violation." Her name was pulled from the nonprofit website by noon. Her church blocked her from the community WhatsApp group. Anna's husband, confronted with the screenshots, denied nothing, but still blamed Grace. By evening, Carl had received 3 separate calls from mutual acquaintances, all asking him the same question. "Are you okay?" He didn't answer any of them. But one thing happened that Carl didn't expect. Jason, the co-worker, called him. Carl picked up. Jason's voice was quiet, humiliated. He apologized. Said he didn't know Grace was married when they first started, but admitted he found out after a few weeks and kept going anyway. Claimed he felt guilty, that he never meant for it to hurt Carl. Carl told him it was already handled. Jason asked if Carl was going to report him to HR. Carl said no, then added, "But they already know, don't they?" Jason hung up. At 10 p.m., Grace came downstairs. Her hair was a mess, face puffy. She said her parents weren't answering her calls. Her mother told her to sort her soul out. Her father had texted one word, pathetic. Carl simply said, "It's late." She asked if he could forgive her. He looked at her for a long time. And then, finally, he said it. "I didn't expose you because you cheated. I exposed you because you made a fool of me. For 2 years, and never once stopped to ask if I deserved better. She sat down on the floor, shaking. He stood up, walked upstairs, closed the door behind him. The bedroom light stayed off. Grace didn't come up that night. The next morning, Grace woke up to silence. Carl had already left the house. No note, no call, no message, just absence. She opened her phone, but most of her contacts had either blocked her or left her messages that didn't need replies. Words like embarrassment, disgrace, and how could you repeated themselves like an echo chamber. Her inbox was flooded. The nonprofit board had issued a formal press statement distancing themselves from her. The company's internal email system had wiped her credentials. Her pastor, a man she had once charmed with good deeds and polite modesty, had forwarded her screenshots of her own chats with a simple subject line, effective immediately. Even her parents, the people she expected to cover the shame, had told her she wasn't welcome in their home until she sorted her moral compass. Her father's business partners had seen the documents. One had threatened to pull funding unless her name was removed from all public-facing materials. Her mother, who always defended her no matter how petty the drama, sent just one text. "You embarrassed all of us." She hadn't cried like this before. Not when she got caught. Not when Carl looked through her. But now she cried. Because it had finally dawned on her that this wasn't just about Carl. This was about everyone she used. Every person she had lied to, manipulated, or treated like they owed her the illusion of perfection. And it all started with an app she thought no one would ever find. Carl wasn't hiding. He was at the bank, finalizing the liquidation of their joint accounts. He had already transferred the house title into a separate holding company, an entity he set up months ago when Grace first suggested refinancing for a dream business. She had signed the papers blindly. Never read the small clauses. She didn't realize that the moment her reputation collapsed, he could seize full ownership. He filed a formal eviction notice that same afternoon. She wouldn't be kicked out right away. But the clock had started. Back at the house, Grace was going through drawers, looking for anything she could use. But everything valuable was gone. Carl had taken the legal documents, the original copies of the property agreements, even the jewelry he had once bought her, for anniversaries she barely remembered. That night, Grace made a call to a close friend, someone she hadn't spoken to since the fallout. She begged for a place to crash. The friend agreed, reluctantly, but just for a few days. Grace packed 2 bags. And as she turned the key one last time, she saw a small envelope taped to the inside of the front door. No name, no message, just her wedding photo, printed in black and white, slashed through the center with a red marker. 2 days later, Carl received an alert. Grace had pawned her wedding ring. The jeweler was someone Carl knew, an old high school friend who ran the shop out of a strip mall. The ring, once worth nearly $4,000, had been appraised for $60. Grace tried to negotiate. He offered $45. She took it. Carl didn't laugh when he saw the footage. He didn't smile. He simply watched her face as she handed over the only physical memory of their marriage left in her possession. Her hands shook. She kept looking over her shoulder like she expected someone to stop her. No one did. She left the store carrying a small envelope of bills and a tear-streaked expression that wasn't performance. That was real fear. Grace tried to rebuild. She applied for jobs, but her name flagged instant background searches. The HR leak had reached places beyond Carl's control, Reddit threads, private forums, even a viral tweet from someone who only captioned it. When your entire life is a Tinder match and your husband turns out to be Liam Neeson. Her face was in memes now. Her scandal was archived, indexed, inescapable. Every time she got close to something resembling normal, someone forwarded the archive. She was denied apartment applications, job interviews, freelance gigs. Grace tried to contact Carl one last time, not to reconcile, but to beg him to take the files offline. He didn't answer, but she got a final package in the mail. Inside, a thumb drive. She plugged it in. It auto-loaded a photo slideshow of every hotel room, every man, every chat. All her own words, flashing like receipts at the end of a failed return. And at the very end, one final image. It was her Tinder profile. Carl had recreated it on a giant digital billboard mock-up, placed above a cartoon version of their wedding photo, where her face had been replaced with a smiley sticker. Below it, one phrase. Attention received. Mission complete. No signature. No date. Just closure. Carl never posted about it. Never told his side publicly. He didn't need to. Everyone around them figured it out. Slowly. Through screenshots. Through whispers. Through pieces that all traced back to one thing. Grace ruined her life and never saw the hit coming. He moved out of the city months later. Quietly. Started over in a different place. New apartment. New contracts. Same discipline. Grace, last he heard, was staying on someone's couch. No car. No job. No access to the accounts she once drained. She tried doing small art commissions online, but her name always caught up with her. Her parents cut her off. Her friends disappeared. Her ex-lovers ghosted her. No ring, resume, and no redemption. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.